Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Some very bad things happened in the world today, and that is the subject of this evening's live Talking Points memo. Tonight, we'll have the latest on a savage display over the skies of Ukraine. Killers firing a missile at a civilian airliner, a Malaysian jet, killing 298 people. That's just been updated. Possibly including some Americans. We may have more information on that during this hour. Also, Israel has sent ground troops into Palestinian territory to hunt down Hamas terrorists and their rocket arsenals. Hundreds have been killed there. So bad news breaking out all over the place tonight. And we will do our best to provide you with accurate reporting, not speculation. We begin with the jetliner. Malaysian Air Flight 17 en route from Amsterdam, Holland to Kuala Lumpur was shot out of the sky over eastern Ukraine, not far from the Russian border. Suspicion immediately fell on Ukrainian separatists who want part of that country to be annexed by Russia because they had used missiles to bring down a cargo plane on Monday. Of course, Vladimir Putin is supplying these heavy weapons to the terrorists, so he is directly responsible. Bet you don't hear European leaders or President Obama say that, but it's true. Russia's trying to undermine Ukraine and is giving weapons to killers. No question about it. So over the next few days, you'll hear the usual calls for investigations and meetings and talks and discussions. But little will happen to Putin because the West is essentially afraid of him, and he knows it. Meantime, the families and friends of 298 human beings grieve tonight. Is Putin grieving? That's a memo. Now we begin our special coverage of this story and later on of the Israeli army entering Palestinian territory. First up, joining us from Washington, Fox News Chief Washington correspondent James Rosen. All right, Rosen, what's new tonight?
Well, Bill, good evening. There are reports tonight that nearly 24 of the passengers aboard this aircraft were Americans, or at least holders of U.S. passports, but those reports remain unconfirmed. However, senior U.S. officials have confirmed to our Pentagon team that the plane was in fact shot down by a so-called Buk surface-to-air missile. It's the very category of missile that the rebels there in eastern Ukraine last month boasted of having acquired when they seized control of a missile defense site in Donetsk. Ukrainian security officials said today they have phone intercepts directly implicating 2 Russian military intelligence officials in this attack. The rebels have denied responsibility. Presidents Obama and Putin discussed the incident by phone today. That discussion comes one day after the U.S. sanctioned the Russian defense firms that manufacture this kind of missile. The Kremlin has issued a statement in the name of President Putin attributing responsibility for this incident to Ukraine, but not saying anything specific about who or what actually shot down that plane. It's actually the 3rd Ukrainian plane downed in this region this week. In short, this incident stands to escalate the whole Ukraine crisis, the tensions in U.S.-Russian relations, to a new level. Senator John McCain, Republican of Arizona, calls it one of the most serious events since the end of the Cold War. And, Bill, when you consider it in tandem with what's happening in various parts of the Middle East right now, it ratchets up the pressure on a president of the United States already facing intense criticism for his conduct of foreign policy. Bill.
Okay. Now, we have a number of foreign nationals on the Malaysian jet that the airline has put out. All right?
Right.
There's a number of Dutch, European people. Why the holdup on Americans? Why have we not gotten the information on that?
Well, it may just be an issue of logistics. It's unclear. The State Department was asked this afternoon if they could confirm the reports were already circulating hours ago about 23 U.S. passport holders being on this plane, but State has not confirmed it. Perhaps it has to do with privacy issues. We want to notify the next of kin, perhaps. I'm speculating there. But the answer is we don't have the answer.
Yeah, because if you have, we had like 153 confirmed dead and the countries that they came to. And as you know, because you travel a lot, Rosen, when you buy an international ticket, you have to show a passport so that the manifest on the plane, they know whether Americans are there or not. They just haven't released it. And maybe what you're saying, they want to get to the next of kin. All right, Rosen, stand by. If you got anything else, we will break in, and we appreciate it very much. Let's bring in Brett Stevens now, foreign affairs columnist for the Wall Street Journal. There's no question in my mind that these so-called separatists, I call them terrorists, did this. Because they had motive, they had the hardware, and
the history.
Come on. And, whether they intercepted people talking about it or it was on Twitter or whatever, they did it. Now, will there, in your opinion, be any repercussions on Putin, who, of course, make sure that they have these heavy weapons. They couldn't get them from anywhere else.
Well, that's right. And I think we have to establish a chain of responsibility here. I mean, the guy who's the military commander of the so-called Donetsk People's Republic, this separatist group, a guy by the name of Igor Strelkov or Girkin, was until March 2013 is believed to have been a member of the FSB, which is the successor to the KGB. So the connections between these separatists and Russia is absolutely undeniable, and the only people who are going to deny it are the Russians themselves. The question is whether Obama is going to pursue the same strategy he did after Crimea, which is condemn and forget, or is there going to be a genuine change in American policy towards Russia? And that has to go beyond just issuing a handful of sanctions against a few Russian individuals or companies.
But certainly Americans don't want a war over Ukraine, even if the Malaysian jetliner was shot out of the air. But my question is this. I don't think folks understand why Putin is doing what he's doing. Can you briefly explain why Putin is arming these terrorists?
Sure,
For what reason?
Because he gets away with it.
No, but there must be a reason for Putin. He must want something out of it.
Putin sees his historical role as reconstituting the old, if not the old Soviet Union, then the Tsarist Empire. And he sees all of these areas of Kiev as being integral parts of ancestral Russia.
So he wants part of the Ukraine. He's already taken part of it, Crimea. He wants more of it to just come over to Russia. Is that what he's after
That's
here?
exactly it. And remember, by the way, and what's important is there are a lot of Russian minorities in NATO countries like Estonia and Lithuania and Latvia, and other countries like Kazakhstan. Northern Kazakhstan is heavily ethnically Russian. So if he feels he can get away with an invasion of Georgia,
he'll do it in other countries.
Crimea,
So he's undermining the government of Ukraine. See, he's creating this civil war by arming and supplying and probably paying these separatist terrorists to cause all kinds of havoc. That's what Putin's doing.
And
correct?
we are doing almost nothing in favor of the Ukrainian government.
But there's no will on that. Look, you can criticize President Obama, but you got to criticize Merkel and Cameron and the French guy and everybody else.
But they take their cues from the United States, Bill.
No, they don't. I don't believe that.
Historically, Europeans have taken cues from the United States, and you have an American president who's saying we have absolutely no will to support a democratic government resisting aggression.
If Putin were threatened by the United States, I don't think Europe would stand up against him. I really don't. I don't think they care. Now, the American government, the FAA, wouldn't let American planes fly over that territory, all right, because they knew that these terrorist separatists had these surface-to-air missiles supplied by Russia. So American jets were told, don't go over there. Why did the Malaysian jet go?
Well, it was also a KLM jet. It was a code share because it was cleared for civil aviation, because they were cleared to fly above 8,000 feet. They did not expect that they would have a surface-to-air missile capable of hitting targets up to 72,000 feet, which is apparently what these Buk missiles are
these
capable,
are powerful missiles,
capable of doing. But you know, Bill, when you fly internationally, you're flying over all kinds of dangerous places where you're potentially at
but
risk.
If the U.S. says don't fly over, it's too dangerous, you would think that the Dutch and the Malaysians would take their cue.
And I think they will from now on. But the responsibility, still lies with Russia and its proxies.
I said in my usual flamboyant way that nothing's going to happen to Putin. Do you agree?
I'm terrified to agree, but I do, because this is an administration that refuses to stand up to aggressors.
Yeah, they may do more sanctions and do all that saber rattling, but they're not going to really do anything to them. All right, Brett, we appreciate you coming in.